Welcome to the Connected Campus podcast, where we explore the ways that diverse professionals are working every day to optimize their efforts to recruit, retain, and graduate their students.
Excited to be here with another in our long ongoing series, chatting with CIOs at institutions across the country to get their perspectives on just the current events and issues and strategies that they're using to kind of confront the everyday problems and things that are going on in this moment of kind of digital transformation and lots of things kind of impacting higher ed in this moment. So Ravi, we'll have you introduce yourself as we usually do. If you want to just kind of do a short covering of your background and everything, and then we'll get into the rest of our discussion.
Thank you, first of all, for the opportunity. And my name is Ravishanker. I'm the Chief Information Officer and Associate Provost at Wellesley College. In terms of my background, I actually came to this country in 1978 to do my PhD in computational chemistry. And right after I finished my PhD and postdoc, for reasons that we don't want to go into detail here, I decided to join IT world in higher ed instead of pursuing an academic career. So I worked for 23 years at Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut, in IT, and I, rose through the ranks. And for the last 3 years there, I was the um, associate vice president for information technology and oversaw a pretty large group of technologists supporting the college. And then I moved on to Pace University in New York City, a very different institution, multi-campus and pretty large, I think 14, 15,000 students. I was there for a year before I got my liberal arts calling, and I joined Wellesley College in 2010, and I have been here for the past 12 and a half years. One of the most interesting things about Wellesley that attracted me here is that Wellesley is one of the earliest institutions to merge library and IT. And I'm a firm believer in that merged organization being the right one for small liberal arts colleges. So I was very excited to be able to manage such a you know important organization within the college.
Yeah, and I guess just because you sort of, said that you feel strongly about that, I kind of want to follow up before we kind of lose that thread. Like, what makes that sort of unique combination, particularly like impactful? I guess especially for students, maybe because I think my brain is sort of leading where I'd imagine, especially now, so much of what a library is sort of dealing with is sort of digital information and the access to those in different databases or, whatever else. But yeah, what's your perspective on that,
Yeah.
that merging of IT and library systems?
So to begin, when you merge IT and library, it is not as if every aspect of the two organization can be merged. That's clear. People who worry about ERP systems, okay, their work is so different from anything in the library land. It is actually the academic support where the two can come together. Okay, and that's where the most powerful paradigm emerges, in that when we talk about academic support in the merged organization, it actually is more the starting point for conversations with faculty or student is more about pedagogy first than technology. Okay, so when you have the two separate organization, even if you have instructional technologists on the technology side, whether it is right or not, they are viewed as technologists first and gadget people, okay, who don't really understand teaching, so on and so forth. Whereas librarians, okay, actually engage in instruction. Okay, they know, okay, what the classroom experience is firsthand. And when make them part of the same organization as the technologists, and the two together, okay, make those conversations with the faculty very different. And it may sound like, okay, well, why don't you just put together the right groups of people from IT and library to make it work? And it does work in certain organizations. I don't want to deny it. But we are creatures of habit when it comes to organizational and hierarchical structures. That's what goes away when you are under one umbrella and you can work together. There are many other creative ways in which you can actually make this work better. One example I always try to tell people is, metadata librarians are very good, okay, at making sure that information can be found effectively and easily, right? And I always think, okay, that's what we struggle with in terms of our websites, right? How do you construct the websites and create the keywords and other, okay, things to be able to find websites easily? Wouldn't that be great to get some of these librarians involved, right? So I think there are multiple ways to think about this unique organization.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate you so much for sharing that because
Mhm.
yeah, it just makes a lot of sense as you've explained it. Because yeah, on its face, and people will be like, "What? That doesn't seem to
Yep.
seem to be really relevant." But yeah, I mean, just that like kind of like you said, sort of the explicit very intentional organizational structure that makes sure that people are collaborating, working versus it just being like a working group or a committee or something like that. And then that it's, bringing in that learning experience, the academic side of the house with just the technical side and everything. And then, yeah, I mean, that just, I think, especially now, like I said, the evolution for a lot of institutions, like you said, just the, identifying the value of those skill sets of those people, I think you can just sort of start to reimagine what their role would be versus like just being a librarian. And if you're not listening, or if you're not watching the video and you're listening to the audio, I'm doing air quotes here of like just being a librarian. It's like, no, they've got valuable skill sets. And if they're just trying to think about how are we, yeah, like managing all of the digital information so it's very findable, it's very organized, it's very uh
Hmm.
yeah, just accessible and everything. So yeah, that's really cool.
Yep.
And I think you mentioned just sort of your career story and everything, and that you've been at Wellesley for yeah over a decade. And when I was kind of looking up some background on you, you just list like a lot of really cool different projects that you've worked on. So just any reflections, kind of navigating those accomplished, because I think you even made note for some of them when I saw it, like some of them were started before you got there. I'm sure you started some while you were there, like just all those different kind of mix of things where you kind of had to inherit things and just kind of get it to the finish line, or you kind of tried to introduce something new. So yeah, just reflections on, all the accomplishments and different projects
Yep.
you've been able to accomplish over the past decade.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to make sure that no one in my position can bring in digital transformations if the community is not ready for it. Okay, so I could not have carried out, I, in the sense, me and my, colleagues in my organization could not have done any of this if the college at large, okay, was ready for it, number one. Secondly, change is hard on everybody. Okay, so the management of change, okay, was one of the central pieces of everything we did. That those are important. The other um, two pieces of information that I want to share with everybody is I have a excellent advisory committee consisting of 6 faculty, 5 administrative staff, and 2 students. The advisory committee is sounding board for any changes that we want to make, and we get lots of input from them. Again, similarly, my senior leadership was very supportive of everything that we wanted to do. And we also are very careful in thinking about exactly why is it that we want to do a transformation. Right? At every stage, we examine the reasons for doing it. Okay, and how do we measure its effect on the end? is it actually doing the right things, okay, etc. So I think we go through a lot of processes to be where we are. So going back to the various digital transformations that we have done, the very first one that we began was the move from a system for email and discussion groups, etc., that Wellesley was using called First Class. Okay, it is very unique in that not many in higher ed used to use this. It was a very popular product in the K through 12 space. Okay, but it worked great for Wellesley. So Wellesley was using First Class, and when I came, I heard lots of um, input from community that we need to really look into a different solution. And so we began that conversation and got moving to Google. At that point, it was called Google Apps for Education. And it was not, as I said, change is hard on everybody. Okay, there are a lot of people here who loved First Class and some of its features, which simply could not be replicated in the Google world exactly. Okay, there were equivalents, but it's not the same, right?
Mhm.
And even now, when I meet some of the faculty members, they remind me, okay, how things were when they were using, okay, First Class. This is after 12 years. Okay, so those attachments on installed basis of, okay, technologies are real. And as someone in CIO, as a CIO, I need to account for it. I need to understand, okay, those things in planning, okay, the transformation. So consultation is important. At the same time, okay, I also accept the fact that everything in life is a normal distribution. Okay, and that applies to technology. When you do technology changes, some will eat it up. Okay, some will love it. Okay, they're on one end of the tail. Okay, then some would not, okay, want to go through this change again. Okay, and they're at the other end of the tail, and then bulk of your users are somewhere, okay, in the middle, right? So as someone in my position and my staff, I always encourage, we really need to understand and address the concerns of people at the other end of the tail. We can't simply say, oh, they will never change, and therefore we no, that's not right. We have to listen to them, because we may learn a thing or two from what they are saying, and maybe we can shape up the technology in ways that addresses some, if not all, of their concerns. Okay, but if not, it's up to me to explain to them, we heard you, we understand, but what we are doing is for the college as a whole, and therefore we are going to move on, and we are here to help you. Like if something is proving difficult, I will send one-on-one help to walk you through what some training videos, okay, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how we have managed every one of these, okay, changes. And um, the um, what I was going to say about the change is also that you can never get it right, okay, because though we are small, we can only plan so much. We don't know every single thing that everybody is doing out there, okay, with any of the technology, until such time as you cut over to the new technology. Help desk phone starts ringing. Oh, this, I used to do this, I used to do that, I can't do that now. So we always prepare ourselves for that, okay, and try to do the best we can. So,
Yeah, I like that sort of like accepting that and that humility. And I mean, yeah, just preparing for it of just like, because yeah, you could spend way too much time planning and then, yeah, there's still going to be some sort of gap and issue or whatever else is going on. So it's like, yeah, try to just get it out there and start to get people interacting on it, and it's just like, oh, okay, we didn't really anticipate that maybe that part of it was going to
Yeah,
be so confusing, so then we need to kind of like,
right.
yeah, make the videos or do what, something that can sort of be sort of patching that gap there. But yeah,
By
I
the
mean,
way,
I really, you
sorry to interrupt.
know,
Go ahead.
no, I was gonna just say though, like, I really like just what you were saying about, obviously consulting with people and talking to people, because I feel like it's getting obviously those group of people together consistently, the right people, and then just like even just asking good questions and good follow-up questions, because it could just be like, yeah, that example that you gave, they really liked first class, or you're gonna migrate to Google Apps, or you're looking at solutions or whatever, and just like, they really like these aspects of it, and almost being like, well, why do you like that so much? Like, what is it about it? Because it could be like, we're not gonna be able to get that piece of it won't be here, but you like that for what reason? And be like, oh, well, it just makes everything like really efficient or really easy. And it's like, well, actually, in this new platform, like, that's part of that reassurance, versus just like, it being like, okay, well, this is what we're doing, we're going to support you, but like, you kind of just have to deal with it. Like, you can, like you said, like, really start to really build much more context as to, as the IT leader on your campus, like, why the decision was made and how
Mhm.
this tool will still get them to where they want to be, even though it's a different path up to that sort of
That's right.
place that they like to be, of how they like to use that tool. So yeah, that's
So
all really good
I
stuff.
want to add a couple more things. So one is,
Mhm.
you know, we are in the unenviable position of finding solutions that works for 18-year-olds all the way up to 80 plus. There's no way on this earth you will find a single solution. Well, with Mac OS, which I love, is an exception. Okay, that you will get, okay, everybody liking something. So you have to accept that. Okay, that you are going to have to find something, okay, that um, um, works for most. If you're aspiring for something that will work for everybody, okay, that's a problem. And also, it's very focused on who it is that is the primary audience of what you're trying to do. A student information system, by definition, okay, is primarily the target audience is students. Staff and faculty are secondary audience, right? So you need to take all of that into consideration. The other thing we have tried very hard to do is to accept the fact that when it comes to some of the core academic business that we do, I am not going to accept technology imposing how we should do business. Absolutely not. There are certain things, okay, that technology can dictate, some business aspects of it, finance, HR, okay, etc. But if the technology is imposing the way we manage our transcripts, okay, it says this is how my technology solution can format the transcript, and you have to live with it. That's not an acceptable solution if that format is not something that works for our culture, right? I It's one example, but registration is another, right? So we examine all the solutions with that, okay, lens. Does the technology do what we need to do effectively? And if it doesn't, we have always gone out of our way to provide alternate solutions. Okay, and that's not a popular, okay, thing to do amongst technologists in higher ed, and even CIOs. Many CIOs would not accept, okay, that as a solution, because that would be called a customization that's hard to keep up with, and I agree with all of that. Okay, but there has to be a balance, okay, of what so these are all some of the guiding principles. Are we doing all of this 100% of the time? Obviously not, but we tried very hard. Okay, and I'll give you one example that we just moved recently to Workday as our student information system. okay, and the way it does some of the processes like academic planning or academic progress report. It does a wonderful job of evaluating academic progress towards degree, but the way it presents the data doesn't work for Wellesley, for who we are, right? The um, Do we wait for Workday to, provide us a solution that works for us? No, we can't afford to, right? So instead, we built something on top of Workday that, works for us, and we're running that for the third year now. Okay, and is that something that we should have done? It's debatable, but in my mind, if it is core to who we are and we need to do it that way, we will do it until I'm here.
Yeah, I like that idea because, like, I guess what I'm hearing is like, yes, you have sort of like rules and guiding principles and things, and it's like, you might try to bend them, at times, but like, figure out those things where it's like, this feels very core to just like how we run this organization. So yeah, we're willing to layer something onto the system to kind of customize it for the
Right.
time that we may need to do that, because it's like you said, like having to really always like bend the knee to the platform itself. It's like that does get a bit exhausting where it's like, well, we'd like to do this. It's like, yeah, just can't. Sorry, deal with it. It's
Right.
like that same idea of like change management, whether it's on that sort of personal level, like you working with a colleague versus like you sort of interfacing with the platform and how is that going to fit in. It's like,
Yeah.
no, we don't want to like change, the fundamentals of
Yeah.
how we do things necessarily just for like, especially just like kind of one platform. But um
See,
yeah,
the
so I think that
other
it's just
other
really good reflections. Yeah.
yeah, the other thing about this is in the last few years, we have seen tremendous changes in technology that requires us to be very different from the way we did business before. Okay, whether it's financial compliance requirements or data security protections. Okay, these were non-issues several years ago, but now they are. As a result, what happened? We are burdening our users in some sense with additional processes, additional requirements that are not popular, but we have to do them. Two-factor authentication. I mean, it's a pain, right? But the protection it provides is the best protection we can provide today. And talk about financial compliance, that's another, for employees, whether it is, pro card reconciliation or expense report. There's a whole bunch of things that our auditors and federal, government, etc., require us to hold ourselves to a certain level of compliance. So it's always hard. People look at this as a burden coming from the technology, but not from some of the other things, right? Like the requirements.
Well, and like you said, like you have so many different constituents that you have to be mindful of, and that idea of how we try to, put all those kind of pieces and platforms on the table to work well for all those people. And I think even just like that, you would need to, like you said, like identify who the primary audience is for any particular tool and cater mostly to them, but be mindful of like, okay, well, we're gonna create this help guide and specify it for students and specify it for faculty or staff, because it's like, one, their use cases are going to be different, and you may just present the information differently, knowing that that audience is going to be more or less familiar or comfortable with various tools and interfaces and stuff, and just what historically they may be familiar with when it comes to like an LMS or something. You can be like, okay, faculty member, you may have been here for a while and remember what we used before, versus
Yep.
like a student that may have never used anything else or whatever. But and with a lot of what you've covered, obviously, again, just acknowledging those varied use cases and everything, and that you did mention IT security to sort of segue to that, because again, in my research, I saw that you recently wrote about how IT security and higher ed is everyone's problem. So I wanted to kind of give a shout out to that. We can link out to that article. It's from our friends at Modern Campus, the Evolution, their publication. But obviously, that was something that you kind of cared enough to take the time to write about and share. If you just want to speak briefly to kind of like what inspired you to write about that, and certainly folks can read the whole article to get the full depth, but why that was something that kind of came to the top of your
This
mind.
is extremely important and it takes up so much time and energy from all of us. It's very important. And this is connected to what you just, summarized from before, which is it's very hard for someone to relate to the fact that every member of the community has a responsibility in this digital world that's not obvious. That is, they each have to practice the best practices of security. Why? Because if they don't, they are providing an opening for hackers into our entire enterprise. Okay, it's not just compromising their information. Once their information is compromised, the multiple ways in which that opens a possibility for an intruder, okay, to affect big damage to the whole enterprise. Okay, and that's not something as an individual anyone thinks of, but that's very, very important. Okay, that's why we try to do the best we can in terms of requiring security education, okay, annually, and two-factor authentication. I know these are the best things we can do today, and I also know that even with all of these protections, okay, the security compromises are happening, almost every day, everywhere. Okay, so I think it's we are a we are an academic institution. If I had a dollar to invest and if I had 8 hours a day to invest, where would I like to spend my time on? I would love to spend that money on enhancing academic support, okay, for faculty and students. And I would love to spend my time meeting with the faculty and the students on appropriate use of technologies, okay, in teaching and learning. But I just can't in this world, okay, because information security is eating up so much of our time and resources and energy that I don't think there's any end in sight. It's getting worse day by day, and so it's very important.
Well, and like you said, like two-factor authentication, I think, is the best tool that we have to ward off against those bad actors and everything. And it does feel like a fair compromise, where I think some organizations like, well, we offer it but it's optional or whatever. It's like we require it, and I think it's a fair compromise. There's, I know, some great tools out there that make it a little bit more efficient to
Mhm.
sort of like provide the authorization and stuff. So yeah, I mean, it is like you said, like you can kind of like the a friction point like that. It is sort of like, I wish we wouldn't have to like kind of put sort of a hoop that you have to jump through, but like, yeah, I mean, the benefits far outweigh the like momentary sort of disruption or sort of like kind of stalling out that you have to do before you get in to do the work that you have to do. But yeah, I mean, it's so important. And uh just glad that, yeah, like folks like you are writing about it, thinking about it, trying to keep it on
Yeah,
people's minds, where like, yeah, in a perfect world you get to a point where everybody's doing that kind of two-factor authentication, and it starts to kind of go into the background, like
yeah.
that's just the new normal, versus it being like, it feels like this is sort of a yeah,
Yeah.
like disruptive thing. So
I think it's very. I think most of the institutions are in good place with this. Um, for us, it was very important to get the support from our senior leadership, right from our president. They were very supportive of requiring two factor authentication. okay, for all systems. And I think that that kind of support makes it easier on us in IT because it's not seen as an IT initiative, but as a college initiative. So whenever possible, that's what I try to do. I try to get the right group of people to work with us to see the reason why we are doing something, rather than it's a bunch of people in IT just sitting in the back office twirling their thumb and okay coming up with these nasty ideas on how to make life difficult for users. That's not who we are.
Yeah, yeah. It's like we are helping you. We are partners.
Yeah.
We're doing this for a reason and good reasons. And yeah, I think especially for a university wide thing like that, like not sort of overlooking or underestimating how powerful and
Hmm.
impactful it would be to just get like from the
Right.
top all the way down, just sort of the kind of cohesive advocacy for initiatives
So
like that. But you
you
know
know, whenever I have conversations with some of the faculty, the conversation is about how the faculty are scholars, teachers, researchers, and how their lives have been transformed in this digital world into something that also requires them to be experts in multiple technologies, be aware of okay security. It's not just about those things that they used to spend most of their time on. Unfortunately, it is a reality. It is taking away good chunk of their time towards okay these things that I think in some sense the conveniences of digital transformation and the digital world okay outweighs some of these things. And the new emergence of AI okay is an example of okay that how the advances in technology now has created so much concern okay for faculty. Okay, how do I know okay some of the writings or okay some of the ideas that the students bring to me are original and not from ChatGPT or Bard. Okay, now they need to become experts in AI systems, okay, or at least know enough. It's very hard. The world is requiring them to spend a lot of time on other things than their scholarly activities and teaching and learning. Yeah.
and I think my takeaway from that is like as a higher ed IT leader, any efficiency gains, because you were kind of speaking to that as like, if I had another dollar and 8 more hours in the day, it's like I'd want to spend them on these sort of things that kind of amplify and enhance the student experience. But uh yeah, the idea of like, okay, well, I don't have those things necessarily, but if we're just thinking about the tools we're already using, the tools we're looking at, or how AI factors into anything we're doing, like all of the sort of marginal efficiency gains of just sort of like getting technology out of the way and it's sort of supplementing the teaching experiences or whatever else, it's just like, yeah, like you're helping more time and more money and more focus to be able to be put on students and supporting them and everything. So it's just like trying to keep that north star of like how can we continuously sort of improve the work we're doing and the efficiency of it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So um but a couple other things that I wanted to make note of, just because through these conversations, like you all are just very interesting people with interesting backgrounds. And so there's a couple of different things that I know are just like interest areas of yours, or just ways that you kind of make yourself available kind of out in the wider world and everything. So the first one is that I saw you do have an interest in MOOCs. You've worked with them and sort of utilized them and taken courses on those kind of platforms and everything. So you can just talk more about that and just like why you're so interested in them, like the positive impacts that you've seen them have on yourself or
Mhm.
others.
I think I'm very proud of the fact that we were the first small liberal arts college to join edX, okay, for MOOC, and that says something about who we are. Our president at that time, said that we are not doing this for anything other than okay, both as an experiment and also to be at the table when MOOC started, because otherwise it was all, big R1 schools. And, the teaching and learning that happens in small liberal arts colleges are very different from the way, okay, they happen in larger institutions. Okay, so the world needs to know how it happens. And I think though we only offered a small number of courses and have not been engaged beyond one hugely successful course in Italian, which still continues. Professor Daniela Bartolesi Graf, just a fantastic, okay, proponent of MOOC. She's so engaged even now, and her, courses on Italian are very popular, and she does a fantastic job. With the exception of that, we haven't continued the other courses. But the faculty who taught that, despite the fact that they put in enormous amount of effort into it, okay, would tell you how much the learners appreciated the different way they taught their courses, and how they learned not just the subject matter, but also how to write better. Okay, because our faculty spent a lot of time, okay, in correcting their papers and telling them how to be better writers, okay, critical thinkers, and so on and so forth. And our faculty also learned a lot from the global, okay, learners who were part of their, class. So I think it went both ways. And subsequently we received a Mellon grant on blended learning, okay, which actually was another great experiment. And talking about the merged IT library, our merged group played a critical role in supporting the faculty and students on those blended learning courses. And subsequently, COVID, okay, taught us about remote learning and teaching. So starting from MOOC to blended learning to Zoom. Now, that some of the faculty who were not interested in any of these things because they firmly believed, okay, the classic ways of teaching, um, are, in some sense, in COVID world, there was no choice, right? There was a couple of semesters. This was the only way to do it. Are actually beginning to see the value of how some of these things can actually add value, okay, to their class. And it's very encouraging to see, okay, how this whole transformation through MOOC all the way up to Zoom has found its way, okay, into
Mm.
teaching. We are still a residential small liberal arts college. I mean, that's our identity, right? But there are ways in which the faculty and staff are figuring these tools in, okay, that I could not have imagined would happen at Wellesley College 10 years ago. So that tendency to adapt is a great thing.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely agree, and just interesting taking like your institution's involvement in a platform like edX as like you all were learning as much as like the students in the course, like just that sort of like exposing yourself to that and being
Yeah,
flexible and sort of just open minded with the potential and possibility. Because like I would completely acknowledge, like I've always had a soft spot for MOOCs, but I will also acknowledge that they're just like I feel like platforms of controlled chaos, because it's like, yep, anybody in the world could just
yeah,
like jump in these courses, and whether they just like hang out for a little bit or actually see it through to
right.
the end, or all that, it's just like you are at least maybe, yeah, well, depending on how an institution is looking at it, it's like, it's like, oh, we want our logo up there, we want our brand out there, or whatever. But yeah, just refreshing that it's
I
just like
Yeah.
taking it as a learning opportunity on your own side.
When it comes to MOOC, I love to tell the story to people. So one of our history professors taught a course, Guy Rogers taught a course called Was Alexander Great? Okay, and um, you know, I should pause here. You can strike that reference because I'm not sure. So in one of the MOOC courses, I remember at the end, the faculty received a thank you note from one of the persons who took the class, who worked for U.S. Armed Forces and was stationed in Germany or somewhere. And that person wrote, I never understood how small liberal arts colleges taught and how students learned. I loved the way you taught the course, and I learned so much more than in any of the other courses and colleges I've taken. So I really wanted to see if I can apply to come to your college. And I was so disappointed that it's a women's college. Of course, it was a male. So,
Yeah. Oh goodness. Yeah. Well, yeah. And I mean, and that's the idea. Is like, I guess that's somebody else's goal. Which is like, oh, we just want our logo up there, or if it's like, oh, we could get
yeah,
prospective students and leads and stuff like that. But like, even just that idea of on the very sort of like meta kind of lofty point of view of it all is that idea of like exposing what that heart of a liberal arts education like it's
yeah,
just like it's a huge platform and opportunity to do that, and whether they go to Wellesley or somewhere else, it's at least just like seeing that there's a different way, and like you said, like it is the core of what you offer, the residential experience, but like just that idea, I know
yeah,
where like I think one of the sort of tangible takeaways of the emergency remote learning that a lot of institutions did was like, okay, yeah, maybe we should make sort of a
yeah,
LMS shell for any course, even if it's taught in person. Like you just want to have that sort of digital
yeah,
sort of place for submitting assignments or communicating, or just repository for resources. But it's like, yeah, all the instruction every week or however often is done in person. Like
yeah,
that is still that core of what we offer and everything. But yeah,
yeah,
just that like you can take some learnings from utilizing a platform like edX or anything else, and just yeah, being open-minded and adaptable. But uh as we wind down, so this is kind of more of a potentially kind of fun thing, is I see that you're like a fairly active like blogger, social media user, like you just kind of put yourself out there on the social internet. How does that factor into your professional life? I don't know if it is like kind of two-way, you're sort of putting yourself out there as much as you're taking in a lot of information and inputs, or
yeah.
yeah, just thoughts on that of like why you
I,
kind of embarked on that journey.
yeah, I mix both my personal views and professional views in the social media, and I try to say more things about personal life in Facebook and Twitter or X, whatever it's called now, um, um, than in LinkedIn, for example, or my blog posts, right? So the reason is, um, I think I have a story to tell, okay, about the things that we are doing, and I consider some of what we are doing to be, okay, pretty exciting and leading edge, and the way we support our academic programs are something that I want to be proud of, and I want the other colleagues to know. And it also, is a recognition that my staff, I'm so thankful, okay, to have my staff who support everything, okay, that we in the senior leadership of LTS, okay, do. And so I think it is a shameless self promotion. That's what social media is. And honestly, I don't do this, okay, for anything other than fun, because I'm 67 years old. I'm not doing this, okay, as a pitch to get my next job. Okay, if I get one, it's great, but that's not my intent. Okay, my intent is to be more fun. I should also tell you, I used to tweet and post to Facebook 100 times more than what I do now. At some point, my wife said, if I don't cut it out, she's leaving.
Oh goodness.
Okay,
Yeah.
so because anytime we had a social gathering, every one of my friend would have known what she was going to say. I'd already posted them. So I said, yeah, I'm just crossing a line here. So I've cut down the numbers tremendously. But
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the without the social media, especially Facebook, I will not be connected to my relatives back home in India in any other ways. I'm not the type who picks up the phone and calls them. Okay, I now know pretty much on a daily basis. Okay, literally hundreds of my friends and family, what they're up to, what they're doing, what's happening in their life, that wouldn't happen otherwise, and vice versa.
Yeah, and that's like the again sort of the heart, like the beauty of these platforms is that it enables us to do that. But like I mean, I'm the same way. I know a lot of other people are the same way. Like we've very much past peak, social media of like, people aren't using Facebook as much anymore and the Twitter and X transition. Like it's just people have been, mass exodus there. And I'm mostly active on LinkedIn as sort of a
Yep,
professional platform. Do a lot of stuff that I'm like reading or,
that's right.
involved with in higher ed and everything, but like uh yeah, just the sort of being like people talk about being like terminally online. We're just like constantly on, constantly posting and just like doing all this stuff, and it's just like there's like a happy medium,
Yep,
moderation in all
right.
things. And so it's good to like that the value of them, to keep in touch with
Yeah,
folks that you care about, and not sort of overdoing it. But I think, yeah, it's really sort of heartening to know that it is like a fun outlet for you, and you want to sort of make yourself available in that way, so that maybe
yeah,
students or colleagues or whomever don't just see you as sort of this person in the org chart that's maybe high up and accessible. They might know like,
yeah.
oh, there's like an entry point for sort of building that camaraderie so we can work better together or do whatever else. So um yeah, so that's really nice, and that's really fun. But we will wrap up with our final question that we ask all of our guests, and I'll be very curious to hear how you take this question. Take it however you wish. What does a connected campus look and or feel like to you?
In the sense of a residential small liberal arts college, connectedness goes beyond digital connected campus, right? So connections happen, okay, through personal interactions, and that's very core to who we are, what our identity is, okay, etc. So to me, it is saddening that after COVID, um, that's slowly eroding. Okay, and on the other hand, the digital connections are getting stronger and stronger. Um, but I think the convenience of connectedness wherever you are, whenever you want, is also making people not realizing that they may be crossing certain lines, like students expecting faculty to respond at 11 o'clock at night to their email, or faculty or staff and students engage in conversations in platforms that are convenient and easy to use but are not compliant with, okay, certain requirements like FERPA. Okay, so I think it's the connectedness in connected campus in the digital world has created far more complexity, okay, while making the connections be seamless and easy. And people are all struggling how and where to draw that line. Staff, the same way. I mean, um, many people who are on vacation, okay, get called because they're the only one who can answer some questions, okay, about a problem or the other. Though, if that connection was not that easy, others would have spent time figuring it out. But the fact that it's just easy to just ping them to ask. So I think it's figuring in ways where work-life balance is getting affected big time, and some of the compliance issues are getting complicated. And so I think uh, the more connected we are, more complex it's becoming.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that because it's like, yeah, just acknowledging that complexity is the idea that just, and I think that's why we've kind of like, and I think whatever the next phase of it is, I'll be very curious to see. But like after peak social media, it was that idea where like, any of these platforms would just espouse like, well, everyone's connected just for its own sake. Like, that's great. Right. And it's like, again, sure. But like now this sort of like, like hangover that we're in and sort of sobering up after that sort of high of just being like, oh my gosh, I connect with anyone, anywhere, anytime. It's like, okay, well, this requires sort of, acknowledging that complexity, being thoughtful, intentional about, yeah, like balance and boundaries and, who are we connecting with how and all those sort of things where it's just, yeah, to me, the takeaway from what you're saying is just like, for higher ed and just the disruptions that came from the pandemic and that sort of reset button about how students are connecting with each other and everybody at a campus is connecting with each other. It's just going to take a little bit more kind of like facilitation or sort of, like kind of bringing that together. Cause it could be like, well, yeah, we're a residential campus. Like that's part of our kind of value proposition, but so much is happening in digital spaces. So then it's like, okay, we need to try to kind of moderate that, be mindful of like what's happening there and sort of teach good digital literacy. And then how can we kind of have that be like the catalyst for people to come together in person and like so yeah, it's just going to take that extra level of effort to kind of strategize and kind of maintain and moderate and facilitate.
Yep.
All those sort of words are what's swirling around for me. So like the connected campus is a complex one, but there's certainly a lot of opportunities and potential. And I mean, I appreciate you helping folks think about all of that, all the stories and reflections and things that you've shared, and the great work that you and your team are doing there at Wellesley. But we'll have ways to connect with you and the things we talked about for this episode in the description and show notes and everything. So yeah, just thanks so much for taking some time to chat with me.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Connected Campus. Please leave a 5-star review for the show and share it so others can discover us. Make sure to also subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode of The Connected Campus.